Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Neil Howard, here on Health Professional Radio, and I'm real glad that you could join us for another segment. We're going to be speaking with Tammy Krotz this evening and Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum. Tammy's going to share her experience contracting COVID-19. After being technically virus-free, her condition worsened into what's being called long COVID. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, both Tammy Krotz and Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum. Thank you both for joining us.
Neil, great to be with you.
Well, first of all, Doctor, if you would give our listeners a bit of your professional background and tell us, what it is that you love about what you do.
Well, my specialty is treating postviral and other causes of chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. My background is in internal medicine. I'm an MD. I got into this because in medical school I came down with a nasty viral syndrome that I called the drop-dead flu that knocked me out of medical school and left me homeless. So I had to learn how to recover from post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome back then. And I spent the last 45 years researching, writing, and teaching about these conditions.
Now, Tammy, I understand that you're an educator. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. I'm an elementary special education teacher.
How long has it been since you were first diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in June of 2020.
Okay. Were your symptoms severe at the outset, or did they gradually become worse?
Actual onset, the 2 weeks that I was isolated with it, they were not bad symptoms. I've actually gone to work feeling worse. I would say the biggest thing was the fatigue. I had a sore throat and a few aches and pains, but nothing that would have normally even kept me home.
Had you been being mindful of the virus before that, taking certain precautions? And you weren't vaccinated at the time, of course.
Nope, that wasn't a possibility at the time. I was being careful. I did end up going to a concert that somebody was just doing at their house. There was like 5 people in their driveway, and there were people sitting out in the street, nobody real close to each other. We were masked, and it ended up that one of the people that were there, a friend of mine, came down with it, and I did about 4 days later. So we're not sure exactly where it came from then, but that's all I know. But I ended up, like I said, with a not too bad of a case, and recovered and spent the summer doing almost my normal things, and then it came back pretty severely in October and September.
Oh. Doctor, Tammy's talking about the fatigue. Talk about this extreme fatigue. What is the cause of this extreme fatigue in patients?
Well, basically what these viruses do, and there are literally over a dozen infections that trigger post-infectious chronic fatigue syndrome. COVID is simply one. What they've been shown is that these trigger hypothalamic dysfunction. This is a key control center in the brain that controls sleep, hormonal production and regulation, and autonomic function. These in many ways are the keys to energy production. When this circuit breaker goes off, energy production drops. So what you're going to see is people coming in not just with fatigue and exhaustion, but the paradox of inability to sleep despite the exhaustion. And that should tip you off that this is post-viral CFS and fibromyalgia. We're also seeing with the autonomic dysfunction a lot of tachycardia and orthostatic intolerance called POTS. So tired, achy, brain fog, can't sleep. These people are not anxious, even though they may understandably be anxious. They have post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome. And the important thing is to recognize that this is a very real and treatable process.
Tammy, when your symptoms subsided and you went back to basically your normal everyday life, had you been cleared medically as being COVID-free, or did you think, well, okay, I don't have the symptoms anymore, I'm good to go?
No, I never got cleared saying that I was COVID-free. It was just the time wore off as far as it ran its course, and I just went about my daily routines.
Talk about the relapse.
We started back to school, and we had had a bad storm here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where I live, so our school was delayed. And so when we started back to school, everybody was kind of behind the 8 ball and trying to catch up with everything. So everybody was tired. I continued to get extremely chronically fatigued to where I couldn't even walk 0.2 miles. And I normally ride my bike 30, 40 miles without thinking anything about it. And I thought I came back down with COVID again, got tested, it was negative. But I was off work for another 2.5 weeks, and I hadn't been the same since then. The brain fog, the chronic fatigue was incredible. It's nothing like I have ever felt before. The different things that I experienced from October until I spoke to Dr. Teitelbaum in April.
Dr. Teitelbaum, when it comes to combating long COVID, is it characterized by symptoms such as Tammys dissipating and then coming back full force? Or is it something where the symptoms really never go away? Or is it a combination of the two?
It can be either or both. I mean, some people will get initial improvement but then relapse, and others, they just never go away. And the key thing, though, to recognize is, again, this is very treatable. We've published 7 studies now, including a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled prospective study that showed that a protocol to optimize energy that we call the S.H.I.N.E protocol, which optimizes sleep, hormonal function, and hypotension, basically the orthostatic intolerance, addresses other infections, nutritional support, and low-grade exercise for conditioning as able, resulted in a 91% average improvement in quality of life. That was p less than 0.0001 versus placebo for each of the different outcome measures that we had. So again, the S.H.I.N.E protocol to optimize energy, and people get their lives back. They recover.
Are there any dangers or warnings that people should have about taking things such as 5-hour energy or these energy drinks trying to combat fatigue, whether they know it's COVID or not?
Well, a little bit of caffeine, a cup of coffee or 2 a day is fine. But when you start trying to beat a dead horse with caffeine and other stimulants, in addition to aggravating the orthostatic intolerance, it's basically an energy loan shark when you're doing this. And it's better to give real energy with the S.H.I.N.E protocol to help the person heal.
Could you go into a little bit more in depth about the S.H.I.N.E protocol? Does it involve any type of dietary changes or things of that nature?
Generally, people want to avoid excess sugar like sodas and fruit juices, and they want to increase salt intake. Salt restriction with this illness is a recipe to crash and burn. Beyond that, most people feel better with a high-protein diet, but the keys will be using a mix of natural and medication options to optimize sleep. That's the S. That's so critical to recovery. And people do better with a low dose of several things like trazodone or Flexeril, simple things, just in small doses like 25 to 50 milligrams of trazodone. Natural options, melatonin, herbals can be very helpful. And then the hormones. The blood test being normal means nothing. It just means there are not 2 standard deviations out or in the lowest 2% of the population. To put it in perspective, a shoe size of 6 is normal. A income of $8,100 a year would medically be normal, but it's certainly not healthy. You need to look at the symptoms of low thyroid, low adrenal, reproductive hormones, and then the hormones need to be optimized as well. Then we look for other infections, and then we'll give nutritional support that tends to be pretty widespread and aggressive.
Tammy, let's talk briefly about how you've been managing your long COVID with the S.H.I.N.E protocol and how your experience has been.
It has totally turned everything around for me. Actually getting on to the sleep and the medications and different things, as Dr. Teitelbaum was talking about, made a huge difference. I was not able to sleep besides being chronically fatigued. And then taking the Smart Energy and the revitalization system helped, like I said, just balance things. And then down the line, also taking recovery factors was a main thing for me for clarity of the brain fog that continued to hang on over the summer, and started that within 4 days, my brain fog was gone after my body was balanced from everything else that Dr. Teitelbaum had put me on with the S.H.I.N.E protocol. And it has totally changed everything. I started back to work on Friday.
Great.
And ended up being off work in the spring for about 6 weeks, and probably should have been off for the majority of the school year last year with the way I was, but doing much better now.
Good. It's good to hear that you're doing much, much better. Give us a website where we can learn more about the S.H.I.N.E protocol, if you would.
Neil, there'll be two main things. Overall, the website vitality101.com gives an overview of the S.H.I.N.E protocol. Mm-hmm. Tammy also mentioned a supplement called Recovery Factors, which is available from Europe, www.recoveryfactors.com. We've published 2 studies now on that showing dramatic improvements with post-viral fatigue.
Well, I appreciate both of you joining us here on the program this evening. It's been quite enlightening, and hopefully we'll all have an opportunity to sit down and have another conversation.
Oh, Neil, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Neil.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Tammy Krotz and Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download at SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Health Professional Radio.